boys and girls. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 or part 3 of Fudge-a-Mania by Judy Blume. I hope you guys are having a good day so far, and I'm actually just going to jump right into the reading today. So we left off on chapter 5, Uncle Feather's Adventure. The next day when I got up, Fudge's bed was empty. He doesn't know you're supposed to sleep late when you're on vacation. I pulled on my jeans, which I'd left on the floor. They felt cold and damp. I forgot about the sloped ceiling until I stood up and whacked my head. That made me so mad I kicked the wall. So before the day even started, I had a bump on my head and a pain in my foot. As I pulled on my sweatshirt, I heard foghorns in the distance. I took a look out the window. Nothing but white. We were completely fogged in. I hope Grandma's making cocoa, I thought on my way downstairs. She likes to get up early. She says at her age you really appreciate morning, and there's no point in wasting it. So I wasn't surprised to hear her laughing as I came through the inside door. The kitchen and the living room are really one big room with a stone fireplace in the center. Buzzy Sr. was having breakfast with Grandma. They'd really hit it off last night. At supper, they'd laughed so hard you'd have thought they were old friends. At the same time, Grandma was trying to feed Tootsie oatmeal, but Tootsie likes to feed herself, so she grabbed the spoon out of Grandma's hand and wound up with a blob of oatmeal in her hair. "Pee," Tootsie said when she spotted me. "You have to go potty?" Grandma asked, as if Tootsie is toilet trained, which she definitely is not. "She's trying to say Pete," Fudge explained. He was at the table counting Cheerios. He counts out exactly 200 before he starts to eat. It takes forever because half the time he gets his numbers mixed up. Mom says it's just another phase and he'll get over it. He better, or he'll never make it to school on time. Then Sheila waltzed in wearing a fuzzy pink robe and bunny slippers. You'd think she'd be embarrassed to be seen that way, but I guess nothing embarrasses the cootie queen. When Jimmy finds out he has to see her first thing in the morning, he'll be on the next plane back to New York. Sheila opened all the windows in the living room on her way to the table. "What are you doing, Sheila?" Grandma asked. "You're freezing us out." "I can't stand the smell," Sheila said. "It's a Maine smell," Buzzy Sr. said. "It's the dampness and the mildew." "Doggy Doo is more like it," Sheila said. "Maybe your dog goes inside, but my dog doesn't," I told her. "Close the windows, Sheila, please," Grandma said. "The baby could catch a chill." Sheila muttered to herself, but she closed the windows. When she got to the one in front of Uncle Feather's cage, she peered inside and said, "Where's your bird, Fudge?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, Uncle Feather's not in his cage," Sheila said. I looked over at Fudge, but he kept counting his Cheerios. 82, 83. "His bird is gone?" I asked. "Yes," Sheila said. "Gone as in not present, as in disappeared from view." I jumped up from the table and ran over to Uncle Feather's cage. Sheila was right. Uncle Feather was definitely not present. I looked back at Fudge, who kept counting his Cheerios. 84, 85. "Where's Uncle Feather?" I asked him. "Someplace nice," he said. 86. "What does that mean?" I said. "I'm trying to count." "I'm waiting for an answer," I told him. So was everyone else. Finally, Fudge looked up from his Cheerios. He was bored. He wanted to come out of his cage. "You let him out of his cage?" I couldn't believe this. Just for a little while, he started counting again. 52, 53. "Go get him," I said. "First, I'll have my cereal." "Oh, no, you won't," I told him. "First, you'll get your bird." "Grandma," Fudge said in his best little boy voice, but Grandma didn't fall for it. "Go and get your bird, Fudge. Your cereal will wait." Buzzy Sr. and Grandma exchanged a long look as Fudge ran out of the room and headed up the stairs on the Tubman side of the house. Then they laughed. But I didn't see anything funny. I sat down and buttered a piece of toast. In a couple of minutes, Fudge was back. He's not there. Not where? I asked. Not where I left him. Where did you leave him? I can't tell, but he's not there anymore, and the window's open. I looked over at Sheila. Well, how was I supposed to know his bird wasn't in its cage, she said. You opened the windows everywhere? I asked. Well, yes, because of the smell. I shoved my chair back from the table. Let's not panic, Sheila said, sounding exactly like her father. Let's think this through in a logical way. I've thought it through, I told her. I grabbed my rain jacket from the hook near the front door. Come on, I called to Fudge. Search and rescue, Buzzy Sr. said. That's the spirit. He raised his coffee cup to toast us. I helped Fudge into his new yellow slicker. It's so long it hangs down to the ground, making him look like a little old man with no feet. I stuck the matching hat on his head. Be careful, boys, Grandma called. It's very foggy out there. Wait, Sheila said. I'll get dressed and come with you. Forget it, I told her. You're making a big mistake, she said, because I'm the one who noticed the empty cage. Yeah, and you're the one who opened all the windows. I pushed Fudge out the door and let it slam behind me. Outside, the fog was so thick you couldn't even see the cars parked in our driveway. It was like standing inside a big white cloud. Where do birds go when it's foggy? Fudge asked. If they're smart, they stay home. We walked along a path through the woods, calling to Uncle Feather. Where are you, stupid? We used all his favorite expressions, but he didn't answer. There was no sound except for the foghorn in the distance. Uncle Feather's just playing a game, right? Fudge asked. Let's hope. The path led us down to the water. There were a couple of houses overlooking the harbor, but it was too foggy to see any of the boats. We'll start here, I told Fudge. Stopping in front of an old white house with black shutters, we climbed the steps to the front porch. I'll talk, Fudge said. He's my bird. Okay, but don't waste a lot of time. I rang the bell. A woman about Grandma's age came to the door. Have you seen Uncle Feather? Fudge asked, getting right to the point. Uncle who? She said. Uncle Feather, Fudge repeated. Why, no, at least I don't think so, but come in and out of that fog and tell me all about it. Come in out of that fog and tell me all about it. We followed her to the kitchen. You can call me Mrs. A, she told us. My husband and I live here all year round. Where are you boys staying? Through the woods, Fudge said. We have a swing. Oh, yes. I've noticed a whole gang at that house. There's Mommy and Daddy and Tootsie and Grandma, Fudge said, ticking off names on his fingers. And Buzzy Sr., Sheila, Libby, Mr. and Mrs. Tubman, and Turtle, Jake, Uncle Feather, and me and my brother Pete. This is Pete, he said, pointing at me. He's not supposed to talk. Mrs. A looked at me. That sore throat is going around, she said. I had it myself last week. What you need is some hot tea with lemon and honey. Before I had the chance to explain that my throat wasn't sore, Fudge made himself comfortable at the kitchen table. Something smells good, he said. Mrs. A set out a plate of cinnamon buns. Fresh from the oven, she told him. And I'll bet you could use a nice hot cup of cocoa, too. I could, Fudge said. I didn't have any breakfast. Why, that's terrible, Mrs. A said. On a morning like this, you need a big, hot breakfast. I tugged at the sleeve of Fudge's slicker, reminding him that we didn't have time to waste if we were going to find Uncle Feather, but he ignored me. Mrs. A poured Fudge a cup of cocoa. Then she poured me a cup of tea. She stirred in a spoon of honey and squeezed the juice from a lemon wedge. That should fix your sore throat, she said. I didn't tell her that when I'm sick, I like Moe's herb tea, or that Fudge's cocoa smelled so good I could feel my mouth watering. There are times when it's better to say something. There are times when it's better not to say anything. Mrs. A joined us at the table. She helped herself to a cinnamon bun. I can't resist them, she explained with a guilty look on her face. This is good cocoa, Fudge said, slurping it with a spoon. Thank you, Mrs. A said. Mitzi says my cocoa's the best. Who's Mitzi? Fudge asked. My granddaughter, she's 5. I'm 5 too, Fudge said. Well, you'll have to come by and meet her. She'll be here tomorrow. Okay, Fudge said. I'm getting married soon, but I can still have friends, right? That's right, Mrs. A said. Everybody needs friends. She didn't ask Fudge about getting married. Instead, she watched, fascinated, as he unwound his cinnamon bun and picked out all the raisins. He piled them up in the corner of his plate. Finally, Mrs. A said, I certainly hope your uncle's not out sailing in the weather. I hope not too, Fudge said, because he doesn't know how to sail. Oh dear, he's not even supposed to go outside. This sounds serious, she said. Have you called the police? Not yet, Fudge said. We called the search and rescue team. Are they coming soon? She asked him. They're already here, he told her. That's a relief, she said. What does your uncle look like, in case I see someone who fits his description? He's mostly black with yellow feet and a yellow nose, Fudge said, stuffing the last of the cinnamon bun into his mouth. Mrs. A seemed surprised by Fudge's description. I could tell she was thinking hard. Then her face lit up and she waved her hands around. Oh, I get it. Your uncle's a scuba diver. Does Uncle Feather know how to dive? Fudge asked me. I'm not sure, I said, getting up from the table, but we've really got to go if we're going to find him. When we got to the front door, Mrs. A took me aside and whispered, Is your uncle all right? Upstairs? She tapped the side of her head in case I didn't get her point. Hard to say, I whispered back. Then I shoved Fudge out the front door. Thanks for the snack. Come back tomorrow, Mrs. A called. Okay, Fudge said. As soon as we were away from the house, I grabbed Fudge by the arm. Why didn't you tell her Uncle Feather's a bird? She knows that, Fudge said. How does she know? Everybody knows Uncle Feather's a bird. No, she thinks he's your uncle. My uncle, Fudge said, laughing. That's really stupid. Right. That's why you should have told her. She thinks there's this guy running around in a black wetsuit with yellow flippers and a yellow face mask. This guy who's a little weird upstairs. I tapped the side of my head the way Mrs. A had. And that he's your uncle. Come on, Pete. That's what she thinks. She doesn't know Uncle Feather's a mina bird because you didn't tell her. You have to give the facts. You have to say, my mina bird is missing. He's mostly black with yellow feet and a yellow bill. Not nose, I told him. People have noses. Birds have bills. Get it? She made good cocoa. If you stop for cocoa at every house, we're never going to find him. Never? Never. Fudge started crying. That's not going to help. I dragged him along the rocky beach, hoping he'd hear Uncle Feather calling to us. But there was no sound except the waves breaking against the rocks. We went to 3 more houses along the water, and Fudge made it clear that his mina bird was missing. But no one had seen Uncle Feather, although they all promised to keep a lookout for him. So we trudged back to our house. Sheila was watching for us at the living room window. She opened the door. Did you find him? She asked. No, I said. Fudge sniffled. Then he covered his face with his hands and lay down on the floor, still wearing his yellow slicker and rain hat. We were quiet for a while. I guess all 3 of us were thinking about Uncle Feather alone, lost and frightened. Suddenly, we heard a piercing scream. Fudge jumped up and grabbed Sheila. I dashed to the hall closet, looking for something to use as a weapon, just in case. But before I could even grab my umbrella, we heard another scream. This time, Sheila and Fudge crawled under the table. Then Libby tore through the house yelling, Help! There's a bat after me! She raced around the living room. There was more noise and confusion as Libby bumped into furniture and knocked over a lamp. Not that she stopped for a minute. She kept screeching and running in circles. I heard the sound of flapping wings. When I looked up, I saw something black flying after Libby. That's when I realized Libby wasn't the only one screeching. "Stop!" I shouted. But Libby didn't listen. "That's no bat!" I yelled as I started running after her. "That's Uncle Feather!" "My bird?" Fudge called from under the table. "Yes, Turkey Brain, your bird." Fudge and Sheila came out of hiding and joined the chase. It didn't take long before everyone else in the house came to see what was happening. Tootsie, who's a good screecher herself, joined right in. "Ee! Ee! Ee!" she screeched as loud as she could, which got Uncle Feather going again. "You four are going to have to play more quietly," Mrs. Tubman said. "We're not playing," Libby screamed. "Ee! Ee! Ee!" Tootsie kept it up. "Everybody freeze!" Dad shouted. "Just freeze where you are." Libby froze. I crashed into her. Fudge crashed into me. Sheila crashed into Fudge. Uncle Feather flew across the room. He perched on top of his cage and looked over at us. "Stupid, stupid, stupid," he called. Then he hopped into his cage and Buzzy Sr. closed the door. We untangled ourselves. Sheila looked at me. "All's well that ends well, right, Peter?" "Yeah, Pete," Fudge said. "All's well that ends well." Then he turned 2 somersaults and landed in my lap. Chapter 6, The Perfect Babysitter. The next morning, Sheila cornered my mother on the porch. She had the brilliant idea that she should babysit Fudge and that Mom should pay her. "Look at it this way, Mrs. Hatcher," Sheila said, making her case. "You're always worrying about him, right? You never know what he might do, and this is supposed to be your vacation. Wouldn't it be nice if you could relax?" "Remember the last time Sheila babysat Fudge?" I told Mom. "Remember how he lost his 2 front teeth trying to fly off the monkey bars?" "That was years ago, Mrs. Hatcher," Sheila said. "Fudge wasn't even 3, and I took a babysitting course this year. I guarantee satisfaction." "No babysitting course could prepare you for Fudge," I argued. But Mom wasn't listening to me. She said, "I think you have a good point, Sheila. I would be more relaxed with someone looking after Fudge." Who ever heard of a wife babysitter her husband? Who ever heard of a wife babysitting her husband? I asked. "Everyone knows this marriage thing is a joke," Sheila said. "Everyone except you, Peter." "Yeah, what about the groom? He thinks it's for real." $7 a day, Mom said to Sheila. 2 hours in the evening and 4 in the afternoon. If we need you after supper, we'll pay extra. "It's a deal," Sheila said, shaking Mom's hand. Then she skipped off singing, hi ho, it's off to work we go." "What about me?" I asked Mom. "What am I supposed to do while she's babysitting Fudge?" "Why, Peter," Mom said, "I thought you'd welcome the chance to have some time for yourself." "Yeah, once Jimmy Fargo gets here." "Well, maybe you and Sheila can watch Fudge together until Jimmy comes." "Together?" "Yes, together. And you'll pay me too?" "I'm paying $7 a day," Mom said. "I don't care how you split it." But Sheila wasn't interested in sharing her salary with me. "It was my idea," she said. "Why should I give up half my money?" "Because he's too much for one person to handle." "I can handle anything, Peter. I'm a very responsible person." She turned away from me and called, "Fudgy, where are you?" "Up here, honey," Fudge called back in his best husband voice. He was sitting on a branch in the swing tree. "What are you doing up there?" Sheila asked, standing under him. "Resting," Fudge said. "A bird always rests after breakfast." "I've got news for you," I told him. "You're not a bird." "I'm practicing for when I grow up," he said. "You're not going to be a bird when you grow up," I reminded him. "I know I'm not going to be a bird," he said, swinging his feet. "I'm going to be a bird breather." "What's a bird breather?" Sheila asked. Somebody who breathes for birds. I've never heard of that, Sheila said. People don't breathe for birds. That's how much you know. Sheila looked at me. He means a bird breeder, I said. Without me around, she'll never understand him. Oh, a bird breeder, Sheila said. That makes more sense. What makes more sense? Fudge asked. Being a bird breeder, Sheila said. What's a bird breeder? Fudge asked. Someone who breeds birds and animals, Sheila said. What's breeds? Sheila looked at me again. You wanted to be in charge, I said. You answer his questions. It's someone who raises animals, Sheila explained. Like a dog breeder raises dogs, and a cat breeder raises cats, and a bird breeder raises birds, and a baby breeder raises babies, Fudge asked. Not exactly, Sheila told him. Parents raise babies. How come baby breeders don't raise babies? I don't know, Sheila said. It just doesn't work that way. I started to laugh. Just wait till she finds out how many questions he asks a day. Now come down from that tree, Sheila told Fudge. No! Very well, she said, sounding exactly like our 5th grade teacher. She marched off toward the garage and came back with a 10-foot ladder. Just as she got it to the tree, Fudge scrambled down fast as a squirrel. Ha ha, he sang. Fooled you, didn't I? Sheila put her hands on his shoulders and her face right up close to his. Now listen to me, Fudge Hatcher. I made a deal with your mother. I'm going to be your babysitter and you're... He didn't wait for her to finish. I thought you're going to be my wife. First, I'm going to be your babysitter, she said. And if that works out, we'll talk about the wedding. After lunch, everyone went off to their afternoon activities. Just like at summer camp. Libby went to work at Ickles Ice Cream Parlor. Grandma and Buzzy Sr. went for a hike in Acadia National Park. Mom and Dad took Tootsie to the pond to see the ducks. The Tubmans went to visit friends, and Sheila took Fudge down to the beach. So for once, there was no one around to bother me. No one to ask stupid questions. This is the life, I thought, as I stretched out in the hammock in the backyard. I can do anything I feel like doing now. I can finish my Gary Paulson book or ride my bicycle out to the lighthouse. I looked over at Turtle, who was sleeping in the sun. I could tell he was having a bad dream by the way his legs and tail twitched. I thought about taking him for a walk. He could use the exercise. Since we got here, he's been sleeping a lot. A walk to the beach would do him good. I jumped up and called, "Come on, boy, let's go have some fun." Turtle opened his eyes and looked at me. He yawned. "Don't you want to go to the beach?" I asked, tugging at his collar. But he still wouldn't budge. "Okay, fine," I told him. "Just sit there." I walked away, sure he would follow me, but when I turned back to check, he was asleep again. Who cares, I thought. I don't need him. I don't need anyone. I can have plenty of fun on my own. I walked through the woods to the beach. Sheila and Fudge were out in front of Mrs. A's house, rock hunting. What a joke. The whole beach is made of pink rocks. When the tide is out, you can walk on the rocks for miles. I headed in their direction. At first, they didn't notice me. They were too busy choosing rocks to dump in their buckets. So I snuck up right behind Sheila and made a loud barking sound. Ruff! Sheila jumped about 3 feet. She was really mad when she saw it was me. "Who invited you?" she shouted. "It's a public beach," I told her. "I don't need an invitation." "I want you to know, Peter Hatcher, that even if you spent all day, every day with us, you're still not getting a penny of my babysitting money." "I don't want your money." "Then what are you doing here?" she asked. "Anyone who feels like being here can be here," I told her. "So how come you didn't feel like being here before? How come you suddenly feel like it now?" I spread my arms wide and sang as loud as I could. "Who can explain it? Who can tell you why?" Fudge started laughing. Don't encourage him, Sheila said. I kept on singing, fools give you reasons, wise men never try. I learned that song last night from Buzzy Sr. and Grandma. It's called Some Enchanted Evening. This is too embarrassing for words, Sheila said. I would have kept on singing, but Mrs. A called from her porch. Yoo-hoo! Yoo-hoo, boys! She waved to us. Did you find your uncle? He was at home, Fudge called back. He was hiding. That's a relief. I was worried. What uncle? Sheila asked. Uncle Feather, Fudge said. She thinks he's my real uncle. Why would she think that? Sheila said. She just does, Fudge said. Right, Pete? Yeah, right, I told him. But that doesn't make any sense, Sheila said. A lot of things don't make any sense, Fudge said. Like a bird breather, I thought. Yoo-hoo! Mrs. A called again. Come up and have a snack. Mitzi's here. Fudge took off and Sheila panicked. Wait for me, Fudgy, she called. She tried to lift the bucket, but the perfect babysitter hadn't stopped to think about how much rocks weigh. Want some help? I asked. I don't need your help. She dumped all the rocks out of the bucket, then turned it upside down over them. Worried someone's going to steal your rocks? I said. These rocks are special. Oh, I guess I didn't notice since there's about 2 zillion more exactly like them. You're hopeless, Peter. Really hopeless. That's better than what you are, I called, but I don't think she heard me. She was already running up the beach after Fudge. I followed. Not that I wasn't perfectly happy on my own, but why miss out on one of Mrs. A's snacks? And I'm going to stop there. All right, happy spring break, guys. See you guys next time.